Okay, as soon as you have a seat, we'll get started. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and on my left, the host of Wake Up Missoula, Scott Ram, right? And then on my further left, affectionately our aging rocker, Emmett. So once again, we're on the set of Horton Hears a Who, and we're going to talk about that in the new Star Trek. Did you see the new Star Trek?
Oh, the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about that. You want to start us off, Emmett?
Heavenly Father, bless our food and our time together in Jesus' name.
So, and then also, let's see. There was the new Star Trek.
Yes.
And then we could talk about some more of the movies, the Dr. Seuss
Yes.
movies. Did you see any of the movies, the Dr. Seuss movies?
Yeah.
And what about the cartoons? You saw the original cartoons
No.
too, right? Well, this here was the original. This is the 1966 Horton Hears a Who cartoon.
Cool.
And it started out, I'll read just this first part here. On the 15th of May, in the jungle of Newell, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool, he was splashing, enjoying the jungle's great joys, when Horton the elephant heard a small noise. That's how the cartoon starts, just like in the film.
Cool.
And there's this little dust speck floating around, and Horton hears him crying for help, and so because he's got the big ears, so he goes, you know, I think there's a person on that dust speck. And I think I should save it because, after all, the person is a person. You remember those lines? So Horton saves the little dust speck and he puts it on a clover, and that's how the whole thing starts. And Jane Kangaroo sees him putting that dust speck on a clover. There's no persons on that dust speck. There never has been. And so the whole cartoon starts that way. But how much do you know about Dr. Seuss?
You know, a fair amount. You know, like any other kid has all been exposed to Dr. Seuss at one point in their life for sure.
Did you get a chance to see some of the original cartoons when you were growing up? Okay, and then the books too, like Green Eggs and Ham.
Yeah.
All the rest of that. What did you think of those?
Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a psychological, Em and I were talking about a psychological aspect to it.
Yeah, he was a psychologist. He was a doctor of psychiatry, psychology, I don't know which, but
Yeah, but it was simple enough that a child could understand it and get that point across, so I found that really interesting. And let's see, what else was I going to say? If you want to throw some comments on that cartoon too. What about the movies? What did you think of the movie?
Pretty good. I mean,
Did you have a particular favorite?
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I never really saw Horton Hears a Who. I just saw The Grinch That Stole Christmas, and I was read, I think Green Eggs and Ham, but it was I didn't really care for
Like the
one or the other.
movies, like that are based on the cartoon. The cartoons are usually like 30 minutes, if not less.
I did. Oh, you talking about the movie, the Jim Carrey movies?
Yeah, you know,
I
they
like those.
expanded on it for sure. They made it
Yeah,
longer.
they added scenes that were not in these originals, and I can understand that to make it more
Well, like if it was made
relatable for adults.
I mean, like
you
the
know.
Dr. Seuss book is notoriously short.
Yeah.
Oh, they are, yeah.
So they had to.
Of
add
course
all
they
this
are,
stuff.
you know, they are.
Yeah, like that poem I read there. They didn't start that till like in the middle of the movie or something like that. And stuff. But what did you think of those Jim Carrey performances in those movies?
Well, they were Jim Carrey performances in movies.
Yeah.
You're not a big fan of Jim Carrey, are you?
Well, he was good in his heyday. The '90s was a good breeding ground for what I like to call annoying comedy.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I hated The Mask. Have you ever seen The Mask? Oh, that was so irritating.
But I honestly got to say that's probably one of his better performances because
Mask?
Really?
because he would compare from one side to another.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
I was more compelled to his human side than his mask side for sure.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, of course, that kind of humor always resonates with kids. And a lot of times you're like, it's funny just to kind of think about that particular movie in general, where you're just like, when you watch it as a kid, you like it, you like the mask, but when you get older, you like Stanley Ipkiss.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. It's
Yeah.
just the way how you enjoy the movie. Kind of like when you're watching Horton Hears a Who, you kind of I don't know. I mean like everything about that story is all about the little guy.
Yeah.
It's all kind of like all encompasses the little guy. And like I've always wondered, because it's Horton Hears a Who, is the Who from Whoville?
Yeah.
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 So it was kind of like
everything related to Dr. Seuss, they were always in Whoville, even though Whoville was a different city per cartoon.
Right.
It was still Whoville.
And so
And on all the
Whoville is a
characters-
whole entire world and planet on
Yeah.
little speck.
On a little speck, yeah, Whoville.
And
their
then
world.
like these animals are in another world that is bigger.
Yeah, they're on like.
But they're on their
our
own.
world.
They're on their own spec.
Well, not the animals. The animals aren't on a spec. It's the people of Whoville that's on a
I think
spec.
though. I think in the
But in the
Jim
cartoon-
Carrey, in the Jim Carrey movie, they kind of adhere to the fact that everyone's on a spec at some point. Like,
Yeah, I know they probably had to make it more
because
relatable. Like I was
Horton's
saying,
on a
you know.
spec, but
Yeah.
they're also like more floating around. Because
Now you know in the cartoon at the end of the original cartoon this one year, remember the spec people? Well, in their world, at the end of the cartoon there was a spec that they heard. So that implies that the whole thing was about to start over again with a question mark at the end.
Right.
That's how that ended. So I think it was pretty much close with the Jim Carrey version too at the end. But yeah, what an imagination Dr. Seuss had.
you know, so the whole idea is that Horton hears the Who, but nobody else hears the Who.
Right.
Nobody in the
So-
cartoon. Yeah, nobody because he's got the big ears.
So basically,
So,
everyone
very
thinks
depressed.
that he's going crazy.
Yeah, and
How
like I
does
was
he?
telling,
How does he prove that there's people on there?
because okay, well let me back up. Instead of using the word schizophrenic, because nobody can relate, the cartoon character says schizowitsophistic is how it was pronounced, but it's the same meaning. So to answer your question, all the animals, starting with the kangaroo here, she thinks he's going nuts, and so she's telling all the animals in the forest, "Watch out, Horton's going crazy. He's talking to himself, talking to people that don't exist."
Yeah.
And so all the animals start believing it because they can't hear it. Only Horton can hear the people in Whoville. But how they prove that they exist at the end of the cartoon, just before it goes off, Horton says, "You little people are going to die unless you make yourselves heard. Now come on, now make yourselves known." And they're screaming, "We are here," but nobody can hear them. And so then there's a little boy named Jojo. He was bouncing a yo-yo, the shaka they called him. And so when Doctor Who grabs the little boy, he takes him up to the tower of the roof and he says, "Say we are here." And when the little boy screams "we're here," then that caused all the other sounds to go through the spec, the dust speck. And so then all the animals could hear it. And it was interesting because they were on the verge of dying for real, because Jane had the animals rope Horton in the cartoon. They put him in a cage. They had his trunk sticking out, and they boiled some hazelnut oil. And so he's holding on for dear life with this clover, because if it drops, it'll fall in there. And so right when it was about to drop, you can hear, "We are here, we are here, we are here." And that's how they got saved. That was in the '66 cartoon.
Wow.
So the movie, they just kind of elaborated on that.
They made it longer.
Yeah.
Made it more intense.
Yeah, they did. And they had it set up where instead of the little boy that saves the day, the boy that saved the day in the film was like this genius, like this scientist, and he had this big like telescope light that he could speak through. And he goes, "We are here." They just elaborated on it. But I was telling him, what an imagination Dr. Seuss had. All these cartoon characters that he left. And I did a story on your show about him, remember? Dr. Seuss? Yeah, he would be 115 now if he were alive.
When did he die?
I don't have my notes on me. I don't know the exact
He must
year.
have died when he was in his 80s.
I think so, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But in his heyday, he really left the world some great characters and fun cartoons. And I think The Grinch Who Stole Christmas is either that one or this one is probably the two most remembered.
Before he was Dr. Seuss, because that's his like pen name for when he wrote the children's books. Wasn't he?
Theodore Geisel was his name.
Really, wasn't he just like a therapist and
Something like that, yeah.
psychologist?
Yeah.
And he wrote books and stuff all the time.
Yeah, he did, yeah. But I think he hit a stride when he started doing this kind of writing and stuff like that. Green Eggs and Ham, all the rest of them. It all has a pretty interesting kind of a psychological message, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, probably his more popular characters for sure are, the Grinch and the Cat in the Hat.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the Cat in the Hat has been.
Mike Myers, that's who I was trying to remember. Yeah, they did a movie. the cat hat with actor Mike Myers who's playing the cat.
Mhm.
You remember? Did you see that?
I
No.
didn't even like that movie when I was a kid. I didn't like that
I was-
one bit.
I was trying to remember.
I felt like I don't know what it was, but it just something about that movie was just like, no, I just can't. I
Yeah.
don't like that at all. I don't know. Did you? Did you
I
like
don't remember seeing the movie.
Yeah, you don't want to. It's kind of. I don't know. Mike Myers comes from that '90s generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't hear about him much anymore. I think Shrek is what he'll be best remembered.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Shrek. So.
You're not talking about Michael Myers, the one from
The
the
comedian.
Halloween.
No,
No,
Mike
the
Myers,
comedian,
the comedian.
Oh,
from Saturday
from-
Night Live.
yeah.
Saturday Night Live.
Don't know.
He was the voice of Shrek.
Shrek.
Never watched Shrek. Interesting.
But Shrek is actually one of those good movies that you should watch.
But he did play the Cat in the Hat.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
he-
guess that was a little cheesy.
It was interesting, but Jim Carrey also played the Grinch.
Yeah.
So Jim Carrey's not is pretty familiar with the Dr. Seuss.
Well, I think according to the documentary on that, the making of it, they all had to probably brush up on it because Ron Howard is responsible for the Grinch. So
Ron Howard, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Ron
little
Howard's kind
Opie.
of
Yeah.
Ron Howard's kind of been all over the place in terms of directing.
Yeah. I think one of his best films is probably A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe.
Really?
Mhm.
I thought Apollo 13 was pretty good.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that's a pretty good one too.
Yeah, that one was.
Is that the one Houston? We got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That one was Ron Howard.
Yeah.
And I think he always has his brother in the movies. You know, Glenn
Yeah.
Howard.
Clint Howard. I
Hey,
think.
Clint Howard, yeah.
Yeah. In
And he-
fact, Clint
and he-
Howard was the actor on Star Trek that played in the Corbinite maneuver.
Oh, yes.
Remember that little alien?
Mm-hmm.
And he had the alter ego with the egghead.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Clint Howard too.
Yeah, he's in everything.
Yeah. Well, you know, he had his own television show, just like
I don't
it
know.
was called Gentle Ben
Oh,
in the '60s. You remember when Ron Howard was like on the Andy Griffith Show?
right.
Well, his brother Clint was on a show called Gentle Ben. He was the lead character, and I talked about that on your show. It was it was like Flipper,
But with a bear.
but yeah, this big, huge bear that would protect the family.
Mm-hmm.
Only in the movies, because bears will not
Oh, yeah.
protect families.
Well,
know.
if you feed them, they will. Well, they'll come back for more food, but you know.
Yeah, but Ron Howard,
But you shouldn't feed a bear ever.
Yeah, I know.
And don't feed
Yeah,
bears.
don't feed bears.
Don't feed any wild animals.
Yeah,
Keep
right.
wild animals.
Yeah, we
wild.
live in Montana.
They
yeah,
can
don't
take
feed
care of
animals.
themselves.
Yeah.
They can.
You know.
Yeah, but anyway,
Because there's like a 3-strike policy
Yeah.
in Montana, which is like, with 3 strikes, and we kill you.
yeah, Clint Howard, he had a show. It was called Gentle Ben. It was a pretty cool series, just like Flipper. It was just
Yeah.
like Flipper.
There's always been like nowadays it's like when you see like Hollywood bears and all that stuff, a lot of the bears are rescue bears. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily like the kind of bears that are the problematic bears.
Yeah.
So they try to make that a point for sure about like animal action to like make sure that these animals are not like abused or overused.
Oh yeah. You know, I like living in Montana, but the thing that always concerned me, like when I used to walk home at night, it was dark, wondering if a mountain lion would just come out of a.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean like, it's been dry everywhere else, and like there's so much irrigation
Yeah.
in the city of Missoula, so it's so easy. But
These
they
cities
like to
that
hide it on
know-
tall grass, so
Yeah,
There
well, I
are-
used to walk through some grass area, and I would always think, okay, dear God, is some mountain lion going to go "Ram," come after me in the
and you
middle
just
of the
gotta
night?
make yourself look big.
Yeah.
The
Well,
rest
there
of-
were
I mean,
trucks. There were trucks
Mountain
like
lions
nearby.
mountain lions are just pussy cats.
Well, that might be so, but it's still sobering.
Yeah.
Like that mountain lion in Los Angeles. Did you hear about that one? There's this like one mountain lion he just like roams the hills in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and he always hides in people's houses.
Well, I mean, like growing up as a kid, it's like you're supposed to climb up a tree to get away from a grizzly bear,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to basically, if you have no choice, you can actually successfully fight a black bear.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they were talking about bears just last night because they
I mean,
had
there's
another
been so
bear
many like
attack.
there's been a couple sightings here, and like I think it was 10 years ago to the like just recently when that one bear in the trampoline. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That was like Montana's famous video that's viral over the internet. It was the bear on the trampoline.
Oh yeah.
Like they darted the bear while it's on the roof, fell on the trampoline, and then hit the ground.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I
I mean, I don't know
remember
if I'm pretty sure that was just like it ran into town, and that was its one and only offense. So I think the bear might be still alive
Yeah,
today.
I think so. I don't think they put it down.
And it was just a black bear too. It wasn't like because that's why it was so high up already. So
Well,
and
for
then a couple of years ago, I remember it was like 2012 or whatever.
Mhm.
Holiday Inn, there was a bear in a tree.
Oh, I remember that, and they tranquilized it or something like that.
It wasn't doing
you know?
anything. It was just kind of hanging out there, and then of course also went viral too because it was like in a tree.
Well, you know how
And
the
then, like, you know,
authorities are.
there's-
They freak out when they see stuff like that. Oh, you can't have that bear sitting in that tree, so they darted it.
Yeah.
And it fell, and then they took it out to the wheat or jungle or wherever they
Yeah.
drop them off at.
Do you mind? I'd like to ask your opinions
Sure.
on that new Star Trek.
Yeah,
that
I
we
was just getting
Oh,
ready
yeah.
to mention that. I was just getting ready to lead up to that.
A lot of origin. It's an origin episode.
But let's let me conclude with all this Horton stuff. I did like Horton Here's Who, the cartoon in the
Mhm.
movie, and the Grinch.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing.
Yeah,
About
I think
Jim
we kind of
Carrey
went
I
over
like.
the Horton Hears a Who
Yeah,
for
not,
sure.
not picking on Jim Carrey, but
Yeah.
I think they went over it.
Mhm.
yeah,
Hit everything on
they
there.
covered
But
it. And they had some of the same poetry, like this poetry here, but they
Oh,
went
yeah.
in the middle of the movie. They had all
Yeah.
that in there too, and
Uh-huh.
they had some pretty good guests. Carol Burnett was the
Uh-huh.
kangaroo.
oh, of course,
and,
of course she was.
Wow.
She's doing another show soon.
Really?
Yeah, she's gonna be on Netflix. She's gonna do a Netflix show.
I didn't hear. Is it like the Carol Burnett show?
I
comedy?
think it's gonna be like a sketch comedy type deal.
Well, she'll
So-
pull it off. She'll pull it off,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, is she? I heard that she's producing it and she's gonna be in it too. So it's gonna be pretty interesting how.
Well, she doesn't look her age. You know, Carol Burnett is like 82 years old, but she
But I
doesn't
think
look
she's
it.
had some work done.
Well,
Like in a
perhaps.
recent picture, I was just like, she's had work done. I'm sorry, I'm
Lot-
sorry,
lot-
but I'm just
yeah,
looking.
we
and I was
all
like,
love you, Carol Burnett, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, like.
Well, you're like 80 and you look like you're 40.
Yeah, like in the '60s, like if you grew up in the '80s and you, the '80s were all about plastic surgery and cutting
Oh, yeah.
yourself up, and then the '90s were people like, okay, slow down.
Yeah.
And then 2000s, everyone started to be more natural, be like, oh, okay, well maybe
Yeah.
I'll put, I don't know, embryo and stuff on my face to make myself look younger, all this lotion stuff. Now there's just like all sorts of things going on. But in '80s, everyone's getting cut up,
Yeah.
implants,
I know.
outplants.
Implants, and they're getting Botoxes and,
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
I suppose if I were that rich, I'd probably do it too. I don't know. But I'm not an actor, so I'll never have to
I mean,
worry
like
about it.
nowadays, like from what I mean, like it's a lot more accessible for people with, you know, fairly stable income. You don't need to be rich to have plastic surgery because it's more like, like in the '80s, it was like, oh, so many people did it, and there was so much money in it. Nowadays, there's an oversaturation of people who do those kind of surgeries, so they're looking for deals to kind of like, oh, just a simple surgery away. It's easy, but it's not that expensive anymore.
I see.
It's mostly
Well, I wasn't
it's mostly
really
about just
aware
like
of that.
you know cutting up around your neck and just kind of
Yeah, just get that smooth chin. Yeah, a lot of
there's a
people want
gullet.
that.
There's a little gullet people get once they like basically the fat in your eyes and the fat in your neck kind of like
Mhm.
gives up
Yeah.
and then you have the waddle.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then, like,
and
your
they want to get
wrinkles
rid of
and
that.
then-
Yeah. You know, Joan Collins comes to mind. I don't know if you know her, the actress.
Maybe.
She was on Dynasty. She played the nemesis to Crystal Carrington, Alexis.
Right.
Yeah, and she looks hot, and she's like old. So I don't know. And I'm not trying to pick on Joan Collins. I'm sure she's a.
I mean, like you were. I mean, like I was
wonderful
watching. I mean, speaking of like old starlets, Hollywood starlets, and all that stuff, I was watching a show called Feud.
Oh, okay.
It was based on the feud between Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
Oh,
Because they did
yeah,
a movie
that's
together,
right.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then that was like
okay.
the one and only movie they did, but like there's
And they
so
had
much
this
more
feud.
about it. Like it was like Hollywood studios at the time actually literally pitted these two women against each other.
Do you think that was all staged too for?
I mean, in the movie and the TV show that they did, it was really good, very compelling. I thought it went a lot of parts, but for the most part, it was really well acted because Jane
Okay.
Fonda played Joan Crawford, and I gotta say, Susan Sarandon played Betty Davis. It was like the perfect casting choice for
Oh
Betty
yeah,
Davis. 'Cause, Betty Davis and Susan Sarandon are like so much alike.
Yeah.
And Susan Sarandon's one of those actresses that really aged well, for sure.
Yeah, she looks natural to me.
Yeah, when she was younger, she kind of looked. I don't know. I didn't like the way she looked when she was younger, but when she like Thelma and Louise,
Oh,
then
yeah.
she had like a good stride in her like 40s and 50s, and she
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Well, anyway, yeah.
But let's talk about Star Trek.
Yeah, we're gonna get
'Cause
into
we,
that
we were
right
talking
now.
about it. We were promised to talk about it, but we never did.
Yeah,
we
we're
gotta stop.
gonna-
No,
we're gonna
no,
do that.
don't talk about this.
No, we're not gonna
Let's
talk
talk
about
about
it anyway. We're gonna
that.
talk
So-
about Star Trek.
And
Now,
you
so
were
you
saying
watched
before
it.
you were interrupted.
Your opinion, please, on it.
All right. Well, from my point of view, I was so busy trying to figure out who's who
Yes.
instead of looking at the plot
Mhm.
line.
Right.
Because I have to know who these characters are.
Exactly.
And so, like, if they repeat it again, then you can pay more attention to the
Yeah.
storyline.
The idea of how they started basically every other like good series is that in Star Trek they basically kind of like had their black and white pilot,
Yeah, I understand.
and then they redid
that,
it,
yeah.
and then they rehashed the pilot again. It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like the first episode. The pilot's supposed to sell it,
Yeah.
and then they basically remake the first episode. But nowadays it kind of feels like they're making a long pilot to kind of
Yeah.
make you hook
Two-part
into the
pilot,
story.
yeah.
Are you saying it
Yeah.
was a prequel to the original Star Trek?
It's
I can
supposed
see
to
that.
be.
But wait. Now I'm really confused.
The premise is supposed to be 10 years before Kirk, Spock, and those guys. That's basically what everyone's saying.
I thought it was after even the Next Generation, Enterprise, and Voyager.
it's-
I thought it was.
No, it's not a sequel. It's another prequel.
Because it was so high tech, and they said we haven't had any interaction with the Klingons for 100 years. I thought this was after the peace treaty that they made just before the Next
No,
Generation.
Next Generation, the Klingons
Oh.
and the Federation were very close already.
I know.
So there was no like separation at all.
I
So
know,
the
so I
whole-
thought they must have separated, and I was wondering, well, how did they separate for 100 years and come back for war? And I was very confused because
So
I
it was a
thought
prequel. It was a prequel.
it was a
So
prequel.
you're
It was
saying that this
not.
one that was on last Sunday was
Yes.
before Kirk's time?
Before Kirk. 10
I
years.
thought it was way after because I didn't
That's
see
what
that.
I was
I
The
didn't see
synopsis says set 10 years before Kirk and Spock ever went on the Enterprise.
When did
Star
it-
Trek Discovery.
That's just like the
And then, like,
Enterprise Star
yeah.
Trek. Enterprise with Scott
Yeah.
Bakula.
So
Yeah.
I was watching, like, I mean, like, it was like, and then of course they have the preview for what the season to come is going to be all about,
Mhm.
and it was basically the pilot was completely unnecessary.
that. Yeah.
Like, if you watch like the scenes,
Yeah.
like as like coming up in the season, it's the guy is going to be the commander of the ship. The girl is going to have a tragic background, which a lot of
Okay.
times what. You know, like the longer you go into a series, that's when you should delve into people's backgrounds.
Yeah.
When there's not
Oh,
enough
I
plot
see.
to move forward,
Yeah.
and then like you introduce the characters in the first episode, and then basically just have a good rapport with them. And you want, and like the more you get little tidbits of who they are along the storyline. But this one just is like, here's the entire backstory of this one character, and what her motivations are, and here's some other characters you might like too.
Yeah, because I tried to watch it, and it didn't say it was before Kirk's time. I watched it.
It
right
doesn't
from the
have
beginning.
to. It already explained it beforehand, but for
When did it do that in the series? Because I haven't seen any of the
Right.
previews. They don't make Starlog magazine anymore, so
Right.
I couldn't read that.
but just from now on, just keep in mind that it is 10 years prior.
I
to
wish
the
I could have known.
series.
Where did they say that? Was it in Starlog magazine? Because that's defunct.
See, I
Where
didn't
was
know
it?
But I
that.
think what they're
10
trying to
years
do is
before.
they're trying to establish their own series, and of course it's in the Star Trek universe, but at the same
Okay.
time they don't want to step on any of the toes of its predecessors. So
Right.
that's why it's set like in a time where it won't affect
Because
the other
in
storylines.
they should have said right at the beginning, this is 10 years before Kirk and Spock and the whole.
Yeah, I
thing.
agree.
For people like me who have not seen the previews,
Or at
or
least
the
throw,
commercials
I mean,
for
at
it.
least throw it up the date, just like throw it up like star date, blah blah blah, and they actually said star date, blah blah blah, like they always do, right?
Yeah.
Captain's log, star
Yeah.
date, blah blah blah. If they would have done that, then it would have been perfectly clear. It would have
would
been
have been,
subtle.
and they
It
didn't
would have been
do that.
subtle, and they didn't have to over-explain.
And
which
they
unfortunately,
do
the
that.
worst thing a show can ever do is over-explain something.
Not for me. For me, I don't mind over explanation. They could have done this where they had. See, it was so confusing.
Emmett's kind of like the guy who's like listening to radio sports, and he needs the constant update of the score
Exactly.
every 5 seconds.
Exactly.
Some people don't like it. That's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with it, yeah.
Exactly. I would have done it. This is the Discovery. Now I'm this Captain
Apparently
whatever.
that wasn't the Discovery, because the Discovery is the ship that they go on
But see,
eventually.
I didn't
Oh.
know. I
So
didn't
this
know
pilot was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, this
Okay,
is
I
my.
see.
Like, it was so pointless. I was
Yeah,
like watching
yeah.
this, it's like, wait a minute, and then I saw the preview for the upcoming season. I'm just like, wait a minute, so this pilot was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
now,
establishes
was it a
backstory.
two? Was it a two-pilot?
It was a two-parter.
But they didn't show the
pilot,
part two on
prequel.
television.
Right. They
It
didn't
was like a
show the.
prequel to the actual series that's going to be starting soon. So the series that picks up where
Oh.
she's basically arrested for insubordination or whatever.
That was
And
mutiny,
she-
actually.
Yeah, mutiny.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah.
But she's on the ship, whatever. Apparently in the future she's going to be on the ship going to transport to prison. Then she gets picked up probably by the
Oh, I see.
Discovery.
Yeah.
And
I
the
see.
captain's
That
like,
makes
well,
sense.
this person is very useful. She's more valuable as a officer, or as a whatever. And then that's how basically that's what I got from the previews. And just like, great, whatever. Just
Well,
start
let me
the
ask
story.
you something. When
'cause
she tried to take over that ship,
Yeah.
remember when she was going to fire on the Klingons? It
Yeah,
turns
yeah.
out that she would have fired on Starfleet
Yeah.
instead. Did I hear that right? Or see that
No.
right?
I couldn't
No.
remember.
At the end.
No,
At the end.
there wasn't that she was going to shoot Starfleet. It's like the fact that she was actually shooting at the Klingons.
Yeah.
Just the fact that she was shooting at the Klingons in the first place
Okay.
was just going to be a huge deal.
Because I thought that they showed a bunch of starships and it looked like
Yeah,
she
they
had
were firing
fired.
ships and other
It
stars.
would've
Like,
been
Yeah.
fired
and then
on
and I thought they were
Starfleet.
going to establish like the big bad guy of the
Exactly.
series, but then they spoiler alert, they up and killed him right then and there. And like at the second episode when everything was like really picking up and everything like that,
Uh-huh.
they had like her own little arc where she had to get out of that little prison or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I like her as an actress. She's a good actress. I've seen her. She was in the Walking Dead series.
Okay,
And,
so-
of course, before they killed her off in The
Okay.
Walking Dead, and then they threw her into the Star Trek series.
Now,
and I
do
really
they-
like the captain. I was really intrigued by the
Yeah,
captain.
do they still have her? Will she
Well,
still be
like
on there?
they up and killed her.
Mhm.
Oh,
But then
okay.
I looked online, and apparently she's going to be in every episode
Okay.
of the season. So
I didn't see
I'm
anything
pretty sure she's
online
going to be
about
like
it.
a guild ghost. You know how they always have like guild
Oh
ghosts
yeah,
in
like
shows?
Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah. Well, what was I gonna say? It's interesting that they had this Asian actress. from
Yeah.
Captain.
I mean, she was great. Like she had like a very just like very a very captain feel to her, but also a very playful kind of personality.
Yeah.
Which I think her like I was really engaged with her throughout the series, and then of course the guy who's actually going to be the captain the next season. I'm not sure how he's going to be, but apparently he's going to be a very controversial captain from what I saw in the fake previews.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they should have done.
It's high production.
It is
They put
very
a lot
high
of, They put a
production.
lot of money into this.
They do.
And I think that with the pilot, it kind of feels like it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, and
Only for the sake
confusing.
of it. Yeah.
Now, they showed part
It was its own
one.
story. It was like
Yeah, it
it's
was
like
its
you
own
watched a
story.
movie. It's like you
Yeah.
watched a
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
that kicked off the series,
Okay.
and the series is going to start officially after next Sunday. Because next Sunday isn't that?
I don't know. I don't even. Here's the whole thing. Have you seen the new Star Trek movies about Jim Kirk and Mr. Spock, the new high-tech ones? I didn't mind those, even though
Yeah,
they were
they're
historical
okay.
revisionist, because I know it's high-tech, but they explained it from
yeah.
the beginning.
It's all the time.
They should have
It's
just
technically a
explained.
sequel to the Next Generation.
Yeah, and what they should have done. Well, it wasn't a sequel to the Next Generation. It was
Because it was
the
time travel
beginning-
because
yeah.
it was the future
Yeah,
of the Next
it was the
Generation.
beginning of, the old Star Trek series from the 60s, just more high-tech. They should have said, if this was a prequel, this is the first of a series of Enterprise things, and it's called Discovery. We're on dry dock on Space Station 1.
Well, that's what
And-
they did with Deep Space Nine. Didn't
Yeah,
they?
but
They
that
were
it
kind
made
of,
it when the beginning, and I liked that. But just so we know what it is for the beginning,
I
there's
see his point as far as
Captain
the
Kirk and
beginning
Mr.
part,
Spock.
too, used to it. Yeah.
Well, like
It will come
in the
later.
original- In the original Star Trek, wasn't it just like you had all the characters,
Yes.
and they just dealt with the situation,
Exactly.
and then on to the next episode, they dealt with the
Exactly,
situation, and then
exactly.
over a
but
period
you
of
got to
time,
remember that was a different
'cause
time period.
Exactly,
Remember,
exactly.
remember Spock, right? When you first
Yes,
met him,
yes,
he's like,
yes.
oh, he must be an alien because of the pointy ears.
Right.
And then we
later,
got to know him.
then when you got to know him, then he's like, oh, he's half human, half
Yeah.
alien. So,
Yeah.
and then they'll dive in more into deeper of like cultures and
Yeah.
mixed breeding and that kind of thing.
The only thing is there hadn't been another Star Trek before that series, so it was okay just to announce at the
And
man
not to
trap.
mention,
We had
you
never
got,
had
not
a...
to mention you got Gene Roddenberry, who was at the helm of the series.
Yeah, and he
then-
was a lot better, but now
Because
you
he cared about the characters and
Yeah,
he
he
cared about all
did.
that stuff. And then he got married to the actress who played the
Yeah.
Well, also in the documentaries too of the original Star Trek, he wanted to write real drama instead
Yeah.
of being a western in
Uh-huh.
space.
I mean, that was
Because that was NBC wanted that, and
Mm.
Gene Roddenberry said, "No, I'm going to write some good, relatable stuff for that time period."
Yes.
Like the episode "Half Black, Half
Mhm.
White." It was talked about racism. That was the kind of material that Gene Roddenberry wanted to write instead
Yep.
of westerns, because Star Trek came out during the westerns era. They
Yeah.
had Rifleman and Wanted Dead or Alive, and
Yeah, I mean,
all the
westerns.
Yeah,
It was like,
and so Star Trek
and so
would have been
that
a
was his
Western
way.
space.
Star Trek was a way for people to be like, okay, they sold it as a western in space,
Right.
and then they engaged it in more of a drama, that kind of thing.
Right.
That was
After a
excellent.
while,
Right.
and then eventually, like CBS was like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be more of a
Yeah.
cowboy romp. It's like, we're gonna cancel your show, and they
Mhm.
canceled the show. The Star Trek was canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Star Trek: The Next Generation actually had the opportunity to end their episodes, end their series, and do this
Yeah.
whole thing, which I think was pretty good. But at the same time, it's like they suffered from oversaturation.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, with
Yeah.
these new series, now that we got so many, I think they have to be put in their proper context at the beginning. Show what series was between what.
Well,
I
like,
mean,
I like-
otherwise,
I like-
as a
I like
Star
that.
Trek fan, I
It
won't
was-
know what's going
if you
on.
were at the very beginning, I got to give them props because they really started to establish other characters along the
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
You had
exactly.
the captain, you had the girl,
Yes.
and then you had the alien who didn't agree with the girl, who was like the science officer. He was
Yeah.
the Spock, the alien.
Are we talking about this new one?
The new one, yeah.
Yeah.
He's this lanky alien with
Oh
the
yeah,
green
yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
Like-
But I didn't understand any of those.
And he
who
was
they
the one who
were.
disagreed with number
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I didn't understand any of this because they didn't explain the characters well enough. It was like they were just aliens, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And it's so high tech. That's why I assumed it
Well,
was
they're
after the
all
next
high-tech.
generation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let
but
me ask you. I was going to ask you. Did, on part 2, they didn't show it on television. You had to go on the computer to see it.
Yeah.
I thought so. I don't know why didn't you just show the whole thing.
Well, yeah, part 2, I mean, like, they try to get people to
TV.
subscribe to do their online streaming thing.
That's CBS
So, like,
for you.
then Sunday is going to be the episode 2, and then continue on throughout. And so, I mean, I might have spoiled everything for you. So
That's
far.
okay. It doesn't matter.
But
I
episode
just-
2 is
yeah.
more of the action stuff. Episode 1
Yeah.
is more about the talking, and establishing.
Right.
And then episode 2 is just like, oh, crazy. But they did a good job with like the makeup effects for the Klingons. Because I mean, like originally, like in Star Trek series, it's like they basically put on a couple prosthetics,
Yeah.
and it got better along the years because prosthetics got better and they had a better budget for it. But I just want to, I do want to talk. Wait, how much time do we have?
We get about 20 minutes.
20
I'll keep
minutes?
it
Well,
open
actually,
line.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
I've been watching
Has
the
it been
clock.
15 minutes?
We have 15 minutes left.
Okay, how long? Wait, how long
Almost
is your
an
show?
hour. We started at
Oh. Okay.
something like 20
Yeah.
to 40 hours, so
Well,
we
wait.
still have some time.
Okay, what time is it now?
It's 10 after 1, so
Yeah.
we have to
Okay.
stop by 1:30.
Yeah, I'll keep an open mind about it. I'll keep
Yeah.
watching.
And it's like-
but
give it a
I'm
chance,
kind
It's
of
like any other show. It's like it always starts out rough. I never like the first season of any show ever.
Yeah, because you have to get used to the character.
And then the
like I
second
said,
season,
that's what I was trying to do.
the second season is just like we know everybody knows who these are. Now we can actually get to like decent storylines
Yeah.
instead of worrying about crap.
Yeah.
And like people like the shows like Law and Order, very like oh there's the bad guy. Oh wait, that wasn't the bad guy the whole time. Here's the real bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there's another twist. The bad guy was the bad guy that you thought it was the bad guy in the first place. The end. And then they repeat that
Yeah.
over and over again. Law and Order. Then you got those hospital shows where it's like how they discover it's like what's wrong with this person? It's like well he's bleeding to death, so we gotta save him. And then they save him, or they don't save him, but they're able to use him to save a dying kid or that kind of thing. And then there's like music plays at the end, and it's like
Well-
thank you. It's like I knew that. I'm glad he was a donor. I'm glad that he can live on in this child who needed the organ, and blah blah blah.
That was-
And repeat,
Yeah.
reset button.
That's the theme
That's-
of not Law and Order.
That's
Hill
that's
Street
the,
Blues.
that's the
Hill
theme.
Street Blues.
That's the theme of every show that's lasted for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of 15 or 18 years, the other day, just yesterday, they had Law and Order on for 18 seasons.
Exactly.
I
They
forgot
they
to
took
watch
it
it. I
down,
was watching some
and then there
other
was an
things.
uproar of people being like, "What are you doing?" And then they brought it
Yeah.
back because there were a lot of people who still watch Law and Order.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Law and Order SVU. I don't care for the others, but Law and Order SVU, that's gripping.
Yeah. What's her face?
That is Olivia.
Olivia.
Oh yeah.
Olivia Benson. Yeah, everyone loves her.
That is such a gripping show that has talked about all the evils of society, so many evils, the dark side of humanity. They talk about pedophilia, schizophrenia, people being falsely accused
Right.
of
And then
pedophilia, rape.
you have actors
And it
from
was
like big
great,
big
yeah.
A-list actors who come down and sometimes star in a couple Law and Order episodes.
Yeah, like what's his name? Played a super villain. Robin Williams
Robin
played
Williams,
a very
I
good
remember that.
super villain.
Oh,
in
I
Storm, and
remember
that was
that,
excellent.
yeah.
Didn't he? I mean, like which big actor too? Was he one of the actors who also played like? There
Well,
was,
Jerry Lewis played a villain too in one of the.
I think he saw too.
In fact, he pushed that one guy in front
Oh,
of the
Tim Curry. Tim Curry was in a two-parter.
in the train in New York. Because see, the reason Jerry Lewis did that because he was old and he was kind of like losing his mind a little bit. The character he played, but he saw this young guy commit a crime that didn't sit well with Jerry Lewis' character. I think he molested some kid or something.
I remember that. That was a good one.
And he said, "I can't let this go by." So at the end of the episode, he saw the young man standing in front of the subway train waiting, and Jerry Lewis pushes him right in front of the train.
Maybe it was a different one I'm thinking of. But
No, that was Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order SVU.
Yeah,
Because they were all. A lot of them were. Some of them were boring. Like they would run out of plots. And there was a rich family one time that had a murder mystery, and it was a whodunnit for the family diamonds. And I thought, I'm turning this one off and going to get some wine and some easy listening. But the others were some of them were so gripping about like pedophilia or false allegations or child sex rings or very grim stuff that normally isn't associated with this show, but the real stuff that.
But I don't mind talking about that because I like that show.
It's a fantastic show and excellent acting. Excellent acting.
But see, what I like about that show is I can relate to that show in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Because it's, when I was growing up, because I have family in New York. And,
they talk about alcoholism and drug addiction. I mean, everything.
I've seen all that.
Wow,
yeah, I can relate. I didn't do it personally. But
exactly.
I was always around it. Aunts and uncles and cousins. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
And some would smoke weed, and I used to hate that.
Oh, yeah. I had never
South
smoked weed.
America. No, I mean, they'd be. Seriously, you come home from work and the whole house is all scented up.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't want this contact high. Let me out of here. So I'd leave. Be all tired and leave the house.
That seems
for a
to
while.
be definitely a more of a growing trend, especially around the United States, as it becomes more and more legal.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I watch Law and Order because of stuff like that. I can relate.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But yeah, they just started their 18th season just yesterday.
Cool. Yeah.
Amazing.
I miss Elliot Stabler. Do you know what happened to Elliot Stabler's character? What happened?
I think he retired, and then the other captain before Olivia.
Captain Cragen.
Yeah,
the bald
he
guy.
retired too. Yeah, he retired too.
So, because I never saw the last episode with Elliot Stabler. Did he get fired? Did he finally get canned for being too violent?
I think he moved on to another acting gig.
Yeah, but I mean, what happened to him in the series?
I think he got in trouble with the series.
Exactly, that's what I meant.
He got
that's what I meant.
Suspended or something like that.
In the series, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
His character.
His character.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's always so weird, like how they
missed
deal
that
with like.
one. I wanted to see that.
Was he the guy who always worked with Olivia Benson?
Yeah.
Yes, and he had such a temper on him.
He had
a temper on him. He was always in trouble.
Beating up bad guys and
bad
everything, and overkill on.
Yeah, exactly. I wondered if he got suspended or fired finally, but
he's just acts now and other things.
Well, he's doing other things now, but I mean the character. I think they wrote him off the show.
Yeah, I wanted
suspended.
I wanted to see that, and I've never been able to see that in the reruns, and I've wanted to see that where he got finally canned. And Captain Cragen said, "You're out of here. Go, get out of here. Never come back."
He just got suspended. Or something. His character.
Well, yeah, there's another show that's coming out that it's actually re-coming out after so many years of being off the air. And it's a the guy who created Seinfeld.
Yeah.
With
Larry David?
Yeah, Larry David.
Yeah.
He's bringing back his show, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I didn't know that.
And it's coming back on Sunday, so I'm kind of excited for that.
That's interesting.
It's one of those shows where it's just like kind of like the perspective of his character in his life and whatever.
So is it a comedy or is it?
It's comedy.
Oh,
it's
comedy.
very comedic related.
I see.
There's like a whole scene where like he's working and outside his office he sees this couple making out.
Okay.
And he's like, "Could you not do that here?" And just like, "I'm sorry, do you not want us to express our feelings of love?" It's like, "Yeah, but just not here. Go."
Oh, that sounds like Larry David.
Which
type comedy.
I like Larry David, and if you like Seinfeld, and I mean like especially if you like,
I did like Seinfeld.
If you like,
it
was like George Costanza's
character
because it's based off of Larry David.
Oh, okay.
But it's on HBO, so they can like drop the F word and all that stuff. But,
I see.
But it's it's still a pretty good series because it's basically about a guy who's completely and utterly antisocial, and how he just kind of like lives his life through awkward situations.
That sounds like George Costanza.
But I'm really excited for that show because I
when
don't know.
Does that air? Do you know?
Oh, Sundays on HBO, I guess.
Oh, I see. So it's not going to be on regular television, so they can cut loose if they want to.
I was bored by Seinfeld. I've tried to watch it about 7 or 8 times to really get get into it, and I
Yeah.
couldn't. It bored me.
Well,
it was
the
a show
whole
about
concept,
nothing.
the concept of the show, it was it's not what they say or do, it's what they don't say and what they don't do.
Huh.
I mean, like, it's a concept of, it's like psychology in a way, where it's
Yeah.
just like how you're just kind of like thinking about how people would react in certain situations, and you're seeing how they react to certain situations.
But
and
it
it's
just
not
didn't
very
make
just
any
like,
sense to me though.
Yeah.
you don't throw, the whole idea of the show is that you don't throw, like, it's not one of those shows that just throw jokes at you after jokes and jokes and jokes and jokes after you.
I
Like,
know.
a lot of shows that are just kind of like, Big Bang Theory, which
That's hard for me to watch.
Same
I can't
here,
watch
too.
it.
Same
I
here,
can't
too.
watch Big Bang Theory because
It's
to
just-
me it is garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it just,
is
like,
boring.
I
can't relate to it. Not a science
I've
fiction
sat there and tried to watch
Yes,
Yes,
it's
same
not
here.
good at all.
It's just,
And now they got the young Sheldon too, so.
Well, the young Sheldon's more play like Wonder Years.
Oh, I remember the one day.
Yeah,
Well, that was
that
so
would make
boring. I
sense.
could not relate to the Wonder Years at all.
Yeah,
I couldn't relate to
Like,
that.
I watched Wonder Years when I was a kid a little bit, and then I was just, I don't know. It just didn't. It really depends, you know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It's Young Sheldon. Like it's so. It's.
You
I
think
don't
it'll
know.
be? You think it'll be a hit? You think it'll be good?
I don't know. It's what channel is it on? It's on CBS.
It's on CBS.
Hmm.
Thing is, with Seinfeld, it was a show about nothing. I mean, there was literally
But
someone.
that's Larry David's style of writing, I
Yeah.
think. And so you think this new show will be sort of like Seinfeld in a way?
Oh, it's not a new show. It's a show that was put
Or
on the air.
recreating?
I mean, like he did. Like, it's so weird because it's like the 9th season out of like.
Well, you know he's going
15,
to probably
6
update it and make
Oh
it
yeah,
relatable.
yeah. Well,
you
like
know.
he just kind of like brought it back because he liked doing the show and he liked just doing it. But
Yeah.
the last time he did an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm was like in 2007, 2008.
Okay.
So I mean,
what
like
made
you know
him
how
decide to
some
bring it back?
you know how some series have this thing of the continuity where it's like a new season every
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
until like they stop doing it forever.
Okay.
But apparently nowadays, a lot of things on trends on television, especially, has been hiatuses for long periods of times, and then just bring it back as a new
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they're doing with the show Will and Grace.
Yeah, they're bringing that back.
Yeah, I never
and
watched
they'll
that.
probably make that more relatable too
To the modern age.
Modern
it really
age,
depends because
yeah.
they hire like a writer staff, and the writers just sit in a boardroom and talk about the comedy and just like, is this funny? Is this like, yeah, we'll throw it out there. I mean, like, if we can't think of anything better, we'll just add a laugh track to tell people when to laugh. Because laugh
I
tracks.
just hate those laugh tracks. It just
Yeah.
The
kinda-
90s was all about filmed in front of a live studio audience,
Yeah.
and then in the 2000s they got much lazier, where they would just like throw in like in the candy.
Cause see, when they have those laugh tracks, I
'Cause
laugh at
Big
the show
Bang
for
Theory-
having the
yeah,
laugh
Big
tracks.
Bang
see?
Theory doesn't shoot theirs in front of a live studio audience.
I thought they did.
No,
Okay.
they shoot it and then they basically get a laugh track,
Oh, I didn't.
or
know
they
that.
have people who are in a room watching the scenes already made,
Oh,
and
I
then they
see.
basically have
the
a
laugh
guy.
tracks sound more.
It's so
real
weird
than they
because
used
like
to
Home
be.
Improvement.
Mhm.
I mean, like, remember that was pretty cool because they actually incorporated their studio audience
Yeah.
and the Tool Time show,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty cool.
Mhm.
And so the studio audience were actually just extras in the whole show, so I thought that was
Right.
pretty neat how they did that.
Right.
And of course, Tim Allen would actually be there and actually warm up the audience and like do, comedy for them before he'd
Yeah.
actually start taping the show.
You don't hear much about Tim Allen these days.
No, you don't.
I don't know if he's still under contract with Disney and can't appear in anything else. And then Disney,
Probably won't let him
and
do
then
anything
also,
else.
and also Disney's not like is asking him, is like, well, you can't appear in any other movies that are not Disney,
Yeah.
but we don't have anything for you at Disney. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Can I work? It's just like, I don't know, like, cause
Yeah.
he was doing that show on ABC. I think it was Last Man Standing.
Oh,
They
I
canceled
remember
that show.
That didn't last very long.
No,
from what
they
I
just
remember.
ended it just last year. They canceled it just last year.
Mhm.
ABC, otherwise known as Always Be Canceling.
Yeah.
That would explain why they're giving me the runaround. I've been trying to get that job
This
with
is
ABC, and they're
Yeah.
just giving me this runaround
Well, they-
treatment.
Yeah.
They finally gave me. I told Noel the other day. They finally gave me a physical mailing address, so I'll send them a DVD and see what happens. I want that job, ABC.
Yeah.
So stop giving me the runaround and hire me to do those Asaph stories.
Yep.
Boy, they're gonna be ticked off if they ever see
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Man, that might make them. Hey, we got to get this kid on.
I mean, it's all been like it's pilot season now, and they have all these new shows that are
Yeah.
coming out. They have a show where like two guys are like detectives and looking for ghosts.
I don't know that one.
Oh,
And there was
yeah.
another one too. Seal something.
Fantasy
Seal?
comedy.
Yeah.
Something about the Navy SEAL.
Yeah, it's called.
Oh yeah, Navy
Navy
Seals.
Seals?
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
Is that a documentary
No.
or is
No,
just
that's
a?
it's
new
like a
action
show.
like CSI, I think, or
I don't know.
something.
It's gonna be like a drama.
Yeah.
With like military scenes and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's with that one guy from Bones. I can't remember his name. David Boreanaz.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
But
I
he's
know
gonna
you're
star in
talking
it. But he's like the only star that they mentioned in the whole entire series.
He's
It's
probably the only one to carry it.
Yeah, like I know. It's like, can you carry a series by yourself? It's like maybe, because like in the other show there was a lot of like pretty good actors in Bones.
Mhm.
I don't know if you watched Bones. And
Never did.
I mean, their gimmick, it was basically like every other show where you had to solve the mystery, but in their case it was about finding old remains of bones,
Mhm.
and then they would basically use science. Because that seems to be
Yeah.
a big thing where they have the man on the computer,
Yeah.
or the woman on the computer, like running like a hacker type person.
Okay.
And they have these shows now where it's like, NCIS, my dad loves NCIS.
Yeah, that's still going strong.
And they have
Yeah,
a
they
hacker girl.
almost
Yeah.
killed
The hacker girl.
Mark Harmon's character, didn't they, in the last
Always,
first one?
or he has amnesia, or it's his
Yeah.
last season,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's just like there's just like I can't find any other acting gigs. I'm
No,
sorry.
he's been pretty banged up.
But the
this
whole idea
last
is like
one.
there's that girl who's like kind of punk rock or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then she types the computer,
Oh.
and then there's this funny scene where actually it's not supposed to be funny, but it's supposed to be serious, where they're hacking the mainframe or whatever, and a guy like stands right next to her and starts typing along with her on the same keyboard. It's like that's not anything at all. That doesn't help.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty funny, and it makes it, like there's so many videos making fun of like fake TV hacking.
Oh yeah.
So
You know, if they were to make new series, I just thought of something. Why didn't they make a Jurassic Park TV series for ABC or
too
CBS? Where they
expensive.
oh,
probably.
CBS, I mean, they're already blowing their budget on this Star Trek show. Look at how
Yeah,
much they're
sure
spending
they
on
are.
this,
Yeah.
with all the makeup, the Klingon sets,
Yeah, yeah.
the beautiful like, and then you have all those like ships that just come.
Yeah, yeah.
And those Klingons, that took a little getting used to.
Well, it
Yeah.
did because they
You know.
looked so different than the
They
others
look
in Next
intensely
Generation.
made
Yeah,
up.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course you have the J.J. Abrams Klingons, which look a little more humanoid.
Yeah,
And then you have Worf looks more humanoid as well.
yeah, yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
have like back in like Christopher Lloyd's Klingon days when he
Yeah.
he was one of the bad guys in one of
Yes.
the series, and his was not as much
Star
made
Trek
up.
3.
And then the
Yeah.
TV series where they barely had anything, it was just like let's put a couple bumps on the top of the
Exactly.
head and call it good
Yeah.
because the budget.
Exactly.
Right,
the budget,
right,
yeah.
right.
I mean,
They look more human in the old TV series from the 60s.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
assuming like because there's comic books that continue the Star Trek Next Generation series.
There are fascinating. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
there was
I
the
didn't
one
know
where
either.
Data is the commander of his own ship.
How
Oh, I
cool.
did not know
And
that.
it also kind of bridges the gap between Spock's time travel in the past of J.J. Abrams.
Interesting.
Oh.
And it also shows an older Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh, really?
Because
I'll have to
he's
look
an
for that.
ambassador to the Romulans. Because
Okay.
the series left off with the peace, like kind of like a peace thing with the Romulans.
Yeah, that was in the movies, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I
Kinda
remember
like,
that.
that's exactly how they ended the series, the movie series in Star
Uh-huh.
Trek.
Yes.
The Final Frontier.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Undiscovered Country, which was the peace
that's
treaty,
right.
which,
Between
which was the peace treaty,
Klingons.
Klingons
Yeah,
peace
the gun-
treaty,
yeah, getting to
which
that.
branched over to the Next Generation.
Right,
The Klingons
right.
were
Right.
totally cool, but also has an unstable relationship.
Well,
with
that
the
was my
Federation.
personal
Worf
favorite.
Was a whatever was a
Uh-huh.
Klingon.
Yes, he was.
That was
And
my
then-
personal favorite of all the Star Trek
and then
movies.
and then the Romulans were the bad guys. They were the big bad
Exactly.
guys.
They wanted to
They're
disrupt
the
everything. Yes.
emotional Vulcans, basically.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Vulcans who are just like, you want to be logical, we'll just be our own
Ourselves,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
We'll just do our own thing.
Yeah.
And of course they're constantly at war with the Federation.
Yeah,
throughout the
yeah.
series.
Yeah.
And then of course they end the Next Generation series with a potential peace treaty with
Between the Romulans. Fascinating, yes.
That's interesting
Oh, yeah.
how they kind of touch base on that because I was I'm looking at actors now and then
Yeah.
I remember you saw Nemesis, right?
Yes, I did. I have
Yeah.
The
that.
clone, Jean-Luc Picard, the young actor, he was a good actor. I really
Mhm.
like him. He still acts today.
Okay.
If you know Tom Hardy.
I know the name.
Wait, I don't think I have. I've seen Nemesis. I didn't care for it. If it's not
No
the
one
one
cared
that-
for it. No one cared for it.
Well,
But
it was not Star Trek to me.
no, it was more of an action movie.
Yeah, well, was that the one with the Borg?
No.
Okay,
No,
I
that's
wasn't
the
thinking of
one
something
where,
else.
First
Um,
Contact was really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, First
That was a good
Contact. I
one.
didn't care for that. I didn't
Insurrection
care
was
for that.
like, the
Yeah.
planet
Yeah,
of the evil
exactly.
people.
Yeah.
Nemesis, they try to get back to the more traditional stuff. And then, because in Nemesis, you actually see the captain from the Voyager who became an admiral.
Yeah.
That little cameo, I think that's because they didn't end Voyager with them coming. Did they end the Voyager right, or did they just stop it completely?
I think they stopped it.
Yeah, because
If I remember.
Nemesis kind of wrapped the Voyager arc up because you saw what's her face.
Yeah, Captain Janeway, wasn't it?
She was Admiral Janeway
Admiral, okay,
in
yeah.
Nemesis.
Yeah.
Wait, I have that on DVD. Nemesis. That's the one I like because it had so many space wars. Was that the one where they were concluding maybe we can have peace with the Romulans? Yeah, I liked that movie. I like Nemesis a lot because of the lasers and
then
the
they-
space wars.
Well, the young clone of
Yeah.
Jean-Luc Picard is Tom Hardy, the actor.
I don't remember that. I just remember the lasers.
Now he's a really big actor
Yeah.
now, and he's been in a lot of movies. He was in the new Batman movie. The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
He was Bane. He was in the newest. He was just recently featured in the Battle of Britain movie, Dunkirk.
Okay.
Tom Hardy is he's coming out as a pretty powerhouse actor.
Cool.
Yeah.
And he started with Star Trek Nemesis, one of his earlier movies,
Well, that
as
would be
the
something
younger
we wanna talk
Jean-Luc
about.
Picard, which
Yes.
I think he did a good job as the
Yeah.
younger Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's such a weird thing, is because
love
the most British French person ever. Because
Yeah.
Jean-Luc Picard is French,
Yeah.
Yes.
but he's played by a British guy who's like super British.
That's what Hollywood is for. And on that
But then
note,
again, it's the future.
Yeah.
And on that note, guys, you have any last minute things? We're out of time.
Um,
And this
I
went
didn't
by
care
real
for the
fast.
first Contact movie for many reasons. Was that the one with the Borg? Which was
Yeah,
the
that
one
was on the Borg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just really was hit and miss with me. I
Well,
thought,
actually, the Borg
"Eh."
was going back in time to prevent
First Contact.
what
And to take over the planet
first
Earth.
Contact and take over. That's what they were
Yeah,
trying
just
to
so
do.
many things. Like
And then
the,
Generations, you like Generations, right?
that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you
Jean-Luc
know,
and Kirk.
Yeah, that was.
do
that
you
was
remember
really
the
good.
warp coil that they first found in First Contact? That was a bed spring painted gold by paint spray. I saw that. This is our warp coil. It was a giant bed spring painted gold
Oh,
spray. And I thought,
gosh.
oh, this is so cheap, you know.
Yeah. And on that note, guys,
Yeah.
we're going to have to wind this up.
Well, I have
Any
a lot
final
of,
words?
I have a lot of hope for maybe this new Star Trek series. I probably won't get into it until if they have a second season. But like any series, you never really can get into it in the first season because everyone's trying to find their bearings.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to keep an open mind, but I still have
That's
hints and
my
messes.
yeah, just give it a chance.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll give it a chance if it gets a second season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note, again, we're on Horton Hears a Who, and it's cool talking about Star Trek. I think we did Horton proud. Would you say?
Yeah, I guess I
Dr. Seuss?
was a little disappointed because remember for a year we've been talking about the new Star Trek just in anticipation. I thought it was going to be Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock.
Well, that was the
redone.
impression I got when they were
Exactly.
saying
And then
that.
they just that with the movies.
Yeah, and I thought this was going to be great. Space
I think
Wars and lasers.
it would do it a disservice at this point, but they have upcoming characters that do
Yeah.
appear in the original Star Trek series in the new.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, yeah.
Well, let me make these final acknowledgments. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and on my left, the host of Wake Up Mozilla, Mr. Scott Ranf. And finally, on my further left, affectionately our aging rocker Emmett. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. And this is season 13. And this is
Episode 3.
3, yes. So, on that note, until our next show, Maranatha.
I finished up my soda pop for both shows. Well, I'm sorry I didn't offer any you anymore.
Oh, don't worry about it. You guys make yourself at home till I shut everything down.